All right, welcome everybody to our fictitious business, or aka the class project, which is going to be known as Coffee Cafe. So here we're going to start off looking at our fictitious business, or we're going to become a business owner, and this is what it's necessary to take the steps to open up a shop, but also what are the equipments, things that we need to buy, purchase, and etc. to kickstart our business. So here we are given $30,000 investment in order to start our company. All right. So we're given this money. All right. So on May 31st, okay, the bank had a bankrupt business and we decided to purchase it. All right. And what includes in the business that we purchased for is a pre-existing coffee shop. All right. And in this case, when we purchased the actual business, we purchased everything that was in the business. So we purchased a store, we purchased furniture, a coffee brewer, and we also got a business name. So I accidentally hit the button right there. All right. So we bought furniture for $4,000. We bought a coffee brewer for $1,900, and we also bought the business name for $2,100. All right. So question here is, do we record this transaction? Yes or no? Why? So we already had $30,000 to invest to go buy something. This isn't a bank loan or anything. This is our own money. And we decided to purchase the business on May 31st. Okay. Okay. So Robin says, yes, we need to record. Michelle, what do you think? Okay. So reason one that we cannot journalize this is because the very first rule of GAAP, which is the business or economic entity. Why can't we record this transaction? What is the business or economic entity? What is that assumption? That's going concern. This is not going concern. Okay, I'll give you a hint. It's a chapter 4, rules of GAAP. Okay. Okay. So no. So I did tell you exactly which assumption this was. This was the business or economic assumption. So what do you need to have in order for this to be a valid transaction? What is the business or economic entity tell you? Mm-hmm. 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 Now, based off of that definition that you just gave me, why can we not record this? Right now, it's not personal, but where do you have a place to record your business transactions? Right now, this money is personal money, correct? It's our money that we're investing, correct? Do we have a special place to put the money in a separate account that's considered just business? Not yet. So unfortunately, we cannot record this transaction because right now the money isn't in a separate bank account. Right now, it's a personal transaction because we haven't established a business bank account yet. That means, therefore, this is a personal investment. Okay, so therefore, we cannot record it just yet because we don't have we're gonna violate that one assumption, that one law from GAAP. All right, so that means we cannot record this transaction, but we will once we open our bank account. All right, so then what happened next on June 3rd? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we went to go change the name. So it was something else, and now we want to change it to Coffee Cafe. All right. Do we need to record this transaction? No, not yet. Exactly. So this one we're unfortunately going to have to put on the back burner as well. But another thing too is you haven't even applied for a business license yet. So technically, do you even have a business right now? No, the business doesn't even exist right now. So we need to so since we bought the store, right? We need to apply for a business license to actually be a official business. So what happened next on June 4th? Correct. So now we applied for our business license. Now, this is easy, right? We can either go to the a local agency, or we can actually go apply online to the state of Nevada. And because nothing is free, even if you're applying, because the one thing that you have to do is you have to pay a fee in order for them to mail out your business license. So in this case, we had to pay the convenience charge to apply, and we submitted it to both state and county. So let's make sure that you understand that, because it's very important that you register not only to the state, you have to also register in the county that you are planning to have your location in, because they may have other rules and guidelines that the state, you know how the state has one guideline. Well, the county has another on top of that guideline, so you must follow that, such as sales tax. Just because you're getting charged the Nevada state tax, depending on what county you belong to, they'll charge an additional county tax. Okay. So with that being said, can we record this transaction? No, not yet. Second thing is we're just applying. We haven't even received the business license yet, but this is a fee that was charged in order to apply. All right. So then what happened next? So this is the same day we actually opened a bank account, a business checking account. So now we actually have a checking account. So what's going to happen here is you're going to journalize everything that you occurred for the business, because now you actually have a legitimate a bank account, a separate account from your personal account. So therefore, you are valid to now go ahead and record all the transactions that you've made for the business. So we got to go back up here and look at what we bought. Well, first we bought furniture. We also bought a coffee brewer. We have a business name. Okay, so what this is considered goodwill. All right. And then we bought a license, right, and permit to go ahead and be able to do business. Now here I've already laid out what your journal should look like. Another thing too is if you have $30,000, you definitely don't want to have that in your pocket. So our first thing that we're going to do is we're going to make our very first deposit into our checking account. So with this being said, this is what the journal should look like. All right. We have money in our checking because that's what we deposit. We recorded that we bought furniture. We recorded that we bought a coffee brewer, and we also recorded goodwill. All right. The next thing that we also had was a license and permit expense. All right. We don't have a separate category for each specific one because what I'm telling you is I made the chart of accounts. So what I'm telling you is that I want you to just total up collectively and place them all under license and permit expense. Okay. And of course, when we invest in our own company, therefore that's considered equity. All right. It's different than borrowing money because that's not your money. That's what you have to make a fine line difference is. When you have equity, it's when you put your own personal money in there. If you get a business loan, that's not considered your equity. That's money that you owe. Okay? So here you go. This is typically what my journal should look like. But however, I don't have my account numbers. So where do I find my account numbers? In your chart of accounts. So let's go ahead and look at our chart of accounts. Our first account that we need to recognize is going to be our checking account. Now, of course, if you guys remember yesterday, I spoke about this. Every single account is categorized by its account type. So what is checking? Yes, because we own the money in our bank, right? So that's considered checking. All right. What's the next one that we have? What is furniture? $1,300. And what kind of account type is furniture? It's a main account of what? What kind of account type? Yes, we purchased the furniture, therefore we own the furniture. All right, so here's the furniture desktop. So furniture is this one. Good for for 13,000. Okay. What about our coffee brewer? What is a coffee brewer? What type of account is a coffee brewer? Okay, let's look at office equipment. If office equipment's a main account. Yes, it is. Yes. So again, it's under our main account under equipment and it's broken down to specifics. So here I actually have an actual coffee brewer for 15 exactly. All right. Now the next account is goodwill. What is goodwill? Mm-hmm. Good. Now, how do you buy a business name? Yes, it is an intangible asset. So it's going to be account not a miscellaneous. Look carefully. Look a couple above. Correct. So, And then let's go ahead and look up what license and permit expense is going to be. So it's going to be on an expense account. Okay, so all expenses are going to be in alphabetical order except for your adjusting accounts, obviously. So anything that's an operating will be in alphabetical order. For license and license and permit, 6,600. Good. 60 like 60, and then 600. Okay. Okay. And then lastly, owner's equity. All right. Owner's equity is going to be an equity account, and it is number 30,000. Okay. Now, again, this is just like when, okay, so now we're going to properly journalize them. So what's the date of my transaction? What day is it right now? Yes, June 4th, right? The day that we established our account. Now, just exactly how we determine, we're going to use transaction analysis. Now, all assets that we acquire are going to be debited. All expenses that we incur are going to be debited. And then, of course, with an equity account, we already know that the normal balance to increase equity, right? Because we're increasing the value of our company, we're going to credit it. All right? So let's go ahead and fill out our journal one at a time. So we know we have a checking account. Okay, and we know that this was 10,100. All right, and then you could go ahead and fill in your debits as well. So I deposited 21,625. All right. Now the second thing that I'm going to start listing out is everything that I've made prior to having my checking account. So I bought furniture. Oh, I spelled furniture wrong. Okay, furniture, which was account number 13,000, I believe. And I bought it for a grand total of $4,000. Okay. Now the next thing I bought was a coffee brewer. Okay, which we did see, which was account number 15010, I believe. Okay, and how much did we buy that for? 1,900. Okay. Now the next thing that we bought was the business name, which is also known as Goodwill. All right. And that account number was, I believe, 19 something. Okay, perfect. 19,100. And we bought it for a total of 2,100. Okay. Now with the license and permit, right, we're going to combine the court fee that we had to pay to change our name. We're also going to combine it with the state license and as well as the county license. So in grand total, our license and permit expense is going to be for the grand total of $375. So here, my account number for my license and permit expense was $6,600. And because it's an expense, we're going to debit it for $375. So $250 plus $100 plus $25 gives me a total of $375. Now, I'm going to let you guys know this as well. So the only thing that's formatted for Excel is going to be the general journal. Everything else you need to reformat it in regards to dollar signs or comma style, whatever one you like. Okay, that's also to practice for your Excel experience. Is to be able to change the formatting of the cells to appear how you want to appear. But the general journal should be automatic. All right, so, and then lastly, how do we enter in a credit? Correct. Owner's equity. I believe this account number was 30,000. And it's also the same as the amount. Now, what you can also do here is, the one thing about Excel is that you always want to make sure that you properly have your debits and your credits match at all times. Because I'm utilizing so many accounts, instead of just typing in 30,000, I'm just going to ensure I didn't make any errors here, and I'm going to go ahead and sum it up. And if it equals 30,000, then we typed in everything correctly. So yes, I got an equivalent to 30,000. So therefore, my journal should be almost complete, right? We have the total debits equal our total credits. We have all of our debited accounts come first, and then lastly our credit account. And then now the last thing we need to do is add a piece of information. Well, what happened here? We opened a bank account. What is the license and permit expense for? Because the other purchases of stuff are pretty straightforward. Here we acquired furniture. Here we bought a coffee brewer. We also bought goodwill. So it's pretty straightforward. You don't need to reiterate what you actually purchased, because this kind of gives you the idea that yes, because you're debiting, you acquired it. So there's no need to put detail into that. But other details you should put is, well, what is the license and permit expense? What does it hold? So this is where I'm going to go ahead and write in my description. Descriptions will always be in parentheses. So in this case, I say that you should enter in court cost, right? You have a court cost of $25. Okay. You have, I'm just going to shorten it up because I don't have space here. NV business license. NVBUS. Okay. For $250. And I also want to do city license, city BUS for 100. And then lastly, you also purchased the business in total for $8,000, right? Including because that's what we did. The very first thing is we purchased the business, right? It just came with furniture, the coffee brewer, and the goodwill. So here, I'm also going to indicate that I purchased business for $8,000. All right, and then end your parentheses when you are complete with your description. So the great thing about having Excel is no matter how much information you place in here, it won't, if you set it up a certain way, it will automatically expand for you. But if you overlap or overlay, it will, the details will still be there. If you want it to show up, then that's when you want to adjust your windows. But in this case, I made it so that it fits just perfectly. All right? So now we completed our very first journal entry. Okay? What are the next steps that you have to do? Okay? And how I'm going to show you is, well, my number one thing is, I'm at the bank right now. I need to make my deposit of $21,625 because I'm at my bank account right now. That's what I just did, and that's what this journal transaction is recording. So if I go ahead and move my sheets over, I should have a deposit section here. All right, I have one column for receipts, one column for the date, and then one column for the deposit. So in this case, my receipts here is going to be $21,625, and I'm going to go ahead and deposit it on June 4th because that's when I had my bank account, and it's going to be identical to what I have made here. So here, as you can see, they're unformatted, so I want you to go ahead and change it how you like it, whether you like accounting style or if you like it comma style, so no dollar signs, but the decimal points. I prefer comma style because sometimes, it doesn't look that great with the dollar sign in every single cell. So in this case, I want to make sure that I have it like this, so I know that these are dollar values. Okay. So there I go ahead. I made my first deposit, which was the $21,625 into my bank account. So now I actually have this money in my bank account instead of having it in my pocket. Okay. Now that I've completed that, I'm actually going to go back to my journal because this is very important that you utilize your journal for various things, right? So the next step here is I want you to place this piece of information into your general ledger. I want you to post every single transaction that you've done. I want you to practice posting it directly into your ledger. Why? Because instead of waiting till the very end of the week to do it, you'll find your discrepancy a lot quicker, and then you'll also be able to find it by looking at the transaction. Okay? So in this case, here I am on my general journal, and now I'm going to go ahead and place all of my information directly into my ledger using my journal. Okay? Let me make this. There you go. So my first asset I have is going to be my checking account. I want you to practice it this way too. Since you guys are beginners, I want you to practice doing it in the exact order that you've placed it into your journal. And then transfer the information into your ledger, just accordingly how you see it. So in this case, my first account's my bank account. Right under it is going to be my checking account. Now, there are a few tricks that you can do with this. If you're using Excel, you can utilize the Find feature, which is the Control F button, right? It's a hotkey to be able to search through Excel on the exact piece of information that you're looking for. Now, I prefer to just scroll up and down. To me, it's just a lot easier. Plus, it's instead of having to highlight the whole row and then do your Control F, I feel like it's a lot quicker to just, scroll up and down. Okay? These are also in order according to account type. So you can also utilize the pages how you want to, whether you look up by name or you can look up by account number. So here, my account for checking should be the second table that you have in here, and you're going to record the information just as you see in your journal. Okay, so June 4th. My item/note is going to be, well, what's the reason why you're debiting your checking account? And in this case, I'm going to go ahead and say, well, I opened bank account. So here, I'm letting myself know that this is what happened. I opened my bank account. So this is exactly why I am placing this information in here. So I have multiple resources on what this transaction how did this transaction happen and what was it. Now post reference, okay, so this is going to be different. It's not going to be the same as your account number because you already have your account number here. Instead, this post reference number is going to be your general journal and the page number where this transaction is located. All right, that's my post reference here. So general journal, okay, GJ for short, page number 1. All right, so if you notice in your general ledger, at the very top corner, you see pages, right? So you have pages 1 through 30 1 through 25 throughout your entire workbook. So as you scroll down, the pages increase. So every time we journalize something and we post it into our ledger, this is going to be our reference point on where and when did this transaction happen. Okay, so there you go, general journal number 1. Now the next thing that you're going to see is, well, how did you journalize it in your journal? And here, my checking, I debited it. So if I debit my account, the very first thing you're going to do is when you transfer the information, it's going to be recording it exactly how it appears from your journal. So if I recorded a debit, then you're going to record it as a debit for $21,625. So here, this is where you need to format on how you want to see your amounts. You want to see them in dollar bills. You want to see them in account style, however style you want. Like I said, I prefer comma style. So there you go. Now, because this is a little different from your journal, you're going to always know what the ending balance in every single account as you transfer your information into your journal. So for example, this one, there is no real formula until we do the second entry, okay? So that means this one in my bank account right now, because I started out with 0, and I debited my account by $21,625. Therefore, my debit is going to be $21,625, okay? And I'll show you the formula on how to calculate a running balance when we dive into the second entry for our checking account. So in this case, that is how I complete my ledger. You're going to have to do this for every single account that you journalize. So this right here is what I have in my checking account. So now the next account I need to incur is going to be my furniture. All right. Since we know that furniture is going to be 15, I think it should be 1,500. 13,000, I'm sorry. So I'm just going to scroll down because I think it's quicker. So inventory's here. Furniture should be right after inventory. Okay, here it is. Account number 13,000 is my furniture. And I'm going to go ahead and apply the date, June 4th. And in this case, I'm not quite sure what I bought. Okay, but at least I know that I purchased furniture. Okay. Because what we're going to do is, and I'm not, just a little hint, I'm going to actually sell this furniture. So I don't really have specificity on what it is. I don't care to record it because I'm going to get rid of it anyways. So I decided to just place it into the main account as just general furniture. General journal number 1. Okay, because we're still on page number 1. And I increased my account by $4,000. So therefore, my debit should also be reflecting as my beginning balance of $4,000. Okay. All right. Is everyone here? All right. Okay. No worries, no worries. And this whole entire thing is I want you to get the best experience by you actually physically doing it with me. I don't want to do the whole thing and then once I get to week 3 and week 4, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I didn't do it the whole time. Well then. So no, I encourage that. So that's why this portion, because I'm showing you how to do it, I want you to keep practicing and do it with me until week 3 and week 4, where I let you guys tell me what to do. All right, so I want to build some kind of system. So here we look at the transaction, we discuss, is it something we record? If it is, we check our chart of accounts. We have it, we put it in our journal, and now this is step number 2 or step number 4, which is also the accounting cycle. We are posting it to our ledger. Okay, so I just want to know, is everyone here? Can we move on to the next account? Perfect. Okay, so next is coffee brewer. Coffee brewer. So that should be under equipment. So we'll keep scrolling all the way down. Equipment should be number, 15. So here's my office equipment. So here it is, equipment. Now, there are a few things, okay? Since I didn't journalize it as equipment, this is just the main account, okay? And we'll talk about main accounts when we move into completing our financial statements, okay? Because that's going to be what's most important, and that's going to be what you're going to be utilizing versus the sub-accounts. But under equipment, here you see the actual breakdown of every single asset. So in this case, I found my coffee brewer, so 624, okay? You don't need to write that you purchased it because it's already obvious that you purchased the coffee brewer, right? So here, post-reference is going to be general journal number 1. And I debited it for $1,900. Therefore, my only balance I have is a debit for $1,900. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and reformat that. Okay. All right. So now the next thing I have is going to be my goodwill, which we've established it, right? My chart of accounts, it's reflecting how I'm supposed to categorize all of my accounts. I have my current assets at the very top, and then I have my fixed assets in the middle, and then at the very end of all of my accounts is normally my intangible accounts or intangible assets. So just like this, we're also going to scroll all the way down till we hit our intangible assets. So here, goodwill. Here's my deposits. Here's my goodwill. All right. So for 6-4, right? It's up to you if you want to indicate that this is a business name. All right. General journal number 1. And I debited my goodwill account by $2,100, making my balance start off with 2,100. Okay. All right. So am I moving at an okay pace? Okay. So next thing we have occur is going to be our license and permit expense. So because I separated each sheet according to account type, we're just going to have to find our expenses. So I separated cost of goods sold and I separated your operating expenses just so then you don't have to scroll so much through the pages. So it should be the very last tab that you have here for operating expenses. All right, so again, they're in order, in alphabetical order. So we're just going to go scroll down till we find it. Here's payroll, so I went too far. Here's labor, and here is license and permit expense. So here, you're going to go ahead and write the date, and this is where you could be specific. So we paid court 25. Okay, we paid Nevada business $250, and we had to pay city business for $100, and that should be it. So this one I automatically have it expand as I go through each item. And this one, if you prefer to have it stylistically look clean and not have so many gaps in between, you're more than welcome to adjust the cells. All right. Post reference here is going to be general journal number 1. And because it's an expense, I expensed it for $375. Therefore, my balance is going to be $73.75. So now, looking at my little journal on my right side, okay, so I know that I went through checking, I went through furniture, I went through the coffee brewer and the Goodwill. I just finished up my license and permit. Now the last account I have is going to be owner's equity. So again, I'm going to go through my tabs here. It should be under equity. And it should be the very first table that you have here under equity. So I'm going to go ahead and write the date. In my item, I'm going to go ahead and write investment. All right, this is how much I invested in my company. All right, general journal number 1. And because I invested $30,000 in my company, that is what my current amount is going to be. Not in the debit, right? It's going to be in the credit because I journalized it in my credit side. So it's going to be at 30,000. And then same thing here, instead of being on the debit side, you're going to place it into the credit side. So you're going to start off your equity at a balance at a credit balance of 30,000. All right. There you go. All right. Now in the gray, as we enter in more and more transactions, in the gray is going to be what's your total quantity and total amounts in here. In this one, I don't want you to worry too much about it unless you want to figure it out on your own. So what it technically is, it's going to be pretty much your sums of each debits and each credits, and they're going to be the difference between them. But I'm not going to show you how to do the totals because you're going to have your total at the end of the day anyways, because every time you enter in a transaction, you're going to know what your balance is at the end of the day. So the totals don't really matter. Okay? So then now that we've finished posting to the ledger, we are complete. We are done. Okay? All right? So now let's see what has happened next. On the same day, what happened here? Okay. Do we need to record this transaction? Correct. We only applied for the line of credit. We haven't gotten it yet. And another thing is, we don't even know how much we got. So, nothing here. So we can move on to the next scenario. So here on the same day, we turned around and we sold the furniture. Okay? And we sold the furniture for right here, for $2,000 cash. Okay? And we also had to request a new ledger account to record this to record the loss. So in this case, I'm gonna tell you, since I don't know what I want to do with this $2,000 loss, I'm gonna have you guys place it into what's an account called miscellaneous suspense. All right. So with this piece of information, right, we got rid of our furniture. We sold it. So therefore, we need to credit it. Now, we only got $2,000 out of it. So we have a loss of $2,000 because we originally purchased it at $4,000. So this right here is a perfect example of how we apply historical cost. We cannot deduct $2,000 worth of our furniture and say we still have $2,000 left. No, we got rid of the entire furniture, and because we originally purchased it for $4,000, now this is where we have to recognize our loss or our gain. So this is the historical cost principle. Okay, this is how do you record it? You need to when you acquire the asset, you record it at the fair value price that you purchased it for. Here, we're selling our asset. You need to still also record it at what you originally purchased it for. So here is what you need to do. We received money, right? In our chart of accounts, do we have a cash on hand or a cash account? Yes. Anything? Do we have a cash account? Okay. What do we know about petty cash? Yes. Okay, so petty cash, we haven't even established one. We don't even have one. And you can't put chump change in there. We learned that, right? So obviously there's no petty cash. Cash in register. Can we just dump this in the register? No. This is also applied to petty cash. It's similar. You can't just dump loose change into a cash register. We don't even have a register in the first place. We don't even have a place to put it. So right now, the assumption here is when we receive cash, whether it's in form of sales or in form of sales if we've sold something, our assumption is we're going to automatically deposit it to our bank account. So therefore, if we know that, that is exactly why we use checking. We don't have a cash on hand or some cash account. We only have checking. So therefore, we're going to be utilizing our deposits one more time. So let's go ahead and journalize this. Okay, so now that we don't have it, our assumption is we're going to take that money and we're going to dump it into our bank. So we're going to increase our checking account by $2,000. All right. And again, because our debits must match our credits, we need to place our loss of $2,000 in an account called miscellaneous expense. This account is just a random placeholder for us to place money in. We don't know that not all businesses have a miscellaneous expense. They might have already created the account for just losses in general. But in this case, because I don't know what to do with it, I'm going to tell you, just dump it in a random account called miscellaneous expense. Okay, so now we're going to record our difference, miscellaneous suspense, because I don't know what to do with that money. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and debit that for $2,000. Okay, so again, checking account number is 10100. We can look at that from above. What account number is miscellaneous expense? Perfect. 19990. Right? 19990. All right? And then now, because we sold our asset, right? We sold our furniture. We no longer have it anymore. Therefore, we need to get rid of it off of our ledger, off of our accounts. So we're going to credit the account by what we originally purchased it for, which was $4,000. So all right, we can also look for the account number from right above for $13,000. And again, if you don't want to have to use your equal sum to make sure that your debits and credits match, you can go ahead and apply the formula here just to ensure that you did your calculations correct or you typed in your amounts correct. So my amount totals up to $4,000. Okay. And then I'm going to add my last thing, which is part of my description, is going to be loss on sale of furniture. Oh, whoops, hit the wrong one. Loss on sale of furniture, right? Okay, is everyone here? Okay, so again, the first thing I know is that I received cash. So I need to deposit that right away in my checking account, right? In a realistic world, you're more likely, you don't want to make so many deposits in one day. You want to wait till either the end of the day or whatever it is, unless because you haven't opened your business yet, you pretty much have enough time to go to the bank at any given time. So, but when we get into actually making sales and stuff, I will let you know when you're going to deposit all of your money. Okay? So in this case, I'm going to go into my deposits. I received $2,000 and I'm going to deposit that same day. So therefore, it's going to reflect a grand total of $2,000. So this is basically every time you go to the bank, you're going to be collecting a deposit slip. And that's exactly what this is. So you don't total up anything. You just only are going to reflect how much you're depositing into your bank account with your deposit slip, of course. But of course, I'm not super detailed in this one. I'm not going to require you to have a deposit slip. I just need you to make sure that you properly take that initiative, because in a real world, you never want to hold on to money, especially when, in any business, you definitely don't want to have a whole bunch of money in your pocket, because anybody can rob you one day, you might accidentally leave money somewhere. A lot of things can happen, so it's a good thing that you try to make your business transactions very secure, and make sure that if you have cash on hand, you report it in some manner, in some proper manner, whether you place it in a lockbox or whether you actually go and physically deposit it the minute you sell it. Okay? So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and go back to my general journal, because I need to use this in order to go ahead and go and place this in my general ledger. So here I'm back at my ledger. My first thing that I've encountered was my checking account. So here, checking account is the second one in your assets, June 4th. Now here I'm going to go ahead and write sold furniture, right? So this is kind of your notes, okay? And as we move down through each scenario, we'll gradually have more details in regards to what happened this day. So in this case, I'm just placing in here that I sold furniture, okay? And then, of course, my reference is going to be general journal number 1. And I increased my debit, right? I debited the account because I gained $2,000 more. So I'm going to go ahead and place it in here. All right. So that means my balance in my bank account should actually reflect differently. And this is where I'm going to show you how to compute the calculation. All right. Now it applies differently when you apply it to a credit. All right. But this is debits side only. So what I'm going to show you here is, now that I'm on my second line and I need a actual accurate balance, what's going to happen is I'm going to go ahead and start my formula. So I place my equal sign here. I'm going to go up to the previous amount, which was my $21,625, right? I'm going to add any debits that occur in that transaction, and I'm going to subtract any credits that occur in that very same line. And then I complete my formula by pressing enter. So now I have a formula inside. If I double click this, I have a formula inside this cell. So it's telling me I'm going to take my previous balance, I'm going to add any debits, and I'm going to subtract any credits to bring my new balance to now $23,625. And that's how much money I should have in my bank account. Now, definitely. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to say. Like for Google Sheets, I don't know if to enter in a formula, if you actually do the equal sign or not. Yes. Uh-huh. 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 No, no, no. You're going to click. No, 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 no. You're going to go up one. So the 21, you're going to, so that's because that's what you want to add to, right? This is what you want to know that what your balance is by taking your beginning balance, all right? Then you're going to either add the 2,000 and then you're going to subtract obviously 0 in your credit box. And then enter. Okay? Okay. Now, no worries. No, that's perfect. We're all letting. Yeah, so with that being said, I don't know if you can apply the formula all the way down. You may have to do it each time. But with Excel, that's why if you do Excel, you when you tap on this, right, there's a formula in there, right? You could see that there's that little green square. And then you move your mouse on it when it becomes the dark cross. You can take that and pull that formula all the way down, okay? That way, you don't have to calculate every single time. And every time, let's say, for example, I added $500, it will automatically calculate for you. If I want to subtract money, let's say I want to subtract $1,000, it will automatically calculate for you. So it worked. Yeah, because there's nothing being added. Perfect. Okay, so good. So for this one, I wanted to pull it in just so then this one automatically calculates for you because this one's going to be a doozy every time you punch into the calculator. Now that's how some of my students did it. They would do the calculation, manually. But here, I just want to do it like this, so then it's much easier. And then you're less likely to have errors. Since both of you guys are okay using the formula and you pulled it down successfully, okay, so this is going to be now our reference points, right? This is where we're going to start matching our worksheets together, okay? So right now I have 23,625, okay? Yay. Okay. Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, so what's the next account that we have to go through? We have a miscellaneous suspense. So as we know, that's actually going to be the last account in your assets. So here I'm just going to scroll all the way down since I know it's the last account there. All right, here you go. Miscellaneous suspense is right here. So again, because just exactly how you have it in your journal, I'm going to go ahead and put in the information here. Now, in here, I'm going to indicate that I sold furniture and I got a loss. So, loss on sale of furniture, right? Because I sold furniture and I got a loss out of it. Right? General journal number 1. All right, and how much did I place in this account? I debited by $2,000. Right? So therefore, because I have no balance in my miscellaneous expense, it's just going to be this. That's what my beginning balance is going to be. It's going to be $2,000. And I'm going to highlight everything. There you go. And I'm going to reformat it to comma style. Right, so you can see the little pennies. All right, so there is my miscellaneous expense. I have a now running balance of $2,000. Okay. Then my very last account I have here is going to be my furniture. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll all the way up to where I can find my furniture. Okay, and usually that one should be after inventory. Okay, here you go, furniture. So this is where now we put that in here, and now I'm gonna indicate here that I sold the furniture. All right, general journal number 1, and now I sold my furniture. I no longer have $4,000 worth of furniture. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to apply the same exact formula. I'm going to go equal. I'm going to go up 1 because my balance right now is 4,000. Okay. I'm going to add any debits that happened, which was my 0, and I'm going to subtract any credits, which is my 4,000, and it should give me a balance of 0. So I have absolutely no furniture left. Oh, sorry, wrong one. This one. Okay, let's do it again. Here, I'll do it together with you. Okay, so I'm going to clear out my formula in here. So the first thing is we're going to activate our formula by equal. Okay, no plus or minus at all because we need a starting number. So my starting number is going to be my box above. All right, and then I can go ahead and place my addition, so plus, my debits, and then I'm going to subtract my credits. And then your formula should pop out. Okay, so remember, after the equal sign, you need a starting number before adding any, addition, subtraction, or anything like that. You need to have a starting number. So I have 0 in my furniture account. Are you able to get it, Michelle? Okay, perfect. Now we have 0 in our furniture. Okay. Okay, so now we can go ahead and we finished our ledger, we finished our journal. So let's go ahead and move on to the next transaction. So now we are on a brand new day. Now we're on Wednesday, June 5th. So we completed our transactions on the 4th. So now the next day has occurred. So in this case, we have this transaction on the 5th. On the 5th, we decided to rent from 2 landlord properties. Okay. And rent, of course, is going to be we want to rent for a third of the year. So we paid 4 months. And, usually with rent, there becomes a deposit. So we have to make a 1 month advance deposit. Okay. So in grand total, I should have a total of $7,500 worth of rent. Now, usually what happens is when you go ahead and go with the landlord and you're paying 4 months, the automatic assumption is you're paying for the current month as well. Okay, so here I split my payment as, well, how much is it for 1 month? $1,500, correct. So my current month's period is going to be a rent expense. All right? And my prepaid account is going to be for the next month, for the next 3 months is what's going to be there. And then of course I have my rent deposit. So in grand total, I am purchasing 3 months of rent plus my deposit. Okay? So here I've distributed how I'm going to be doing it. So I have to pay for obviously the current expense. So I'm paying for the month of June, and the next 3 months, so July, August, September, is going to be for $4,500. And then lastly, my deposit's usually 1 month rent deposit, so $1,500, giving me a grand total of $7,500. And I paid by issuing my very first check. So there's a lot of things that we have to do. Okay? So first off, now that I've established what my accounts are going to be, I need to figure out what my account numbers are, or if they even exist in our chart of accounts. So first one is rent expense. Do we have a rent expense account? It's going to be under operating. Okay, good. And then my prepaid account. So this is the same thing as prepaid rent. What do you know about a prepaid rent or prepaid insurance? Things like that. What are those? Assets, yes, but more specifically, they're intangible, right? Can you touch rent? No. So let's go find it. Here you go. I have a prepaid rent, meaning I paid in advance. So that's going to be considered a prepaid account. All right. 18,600. And then lastly, I have a deposit as well, because that technically you're supposed to get the deposit back. So this is technically your money. But of course you can't touch a deposit, can you? No, so it's considered an intangible as well. But it's still money that is technically yours. It's just being held, okay? Okay, so you have deposits right here for 18,700. And then lastly, because we wrote a check, we're decreasing our money. So therefore, we wrote a check for a grand total of 7,500. So let's go ahead and journalize this. Okay, so on June 5th, okay, I had rent expense. Okay, and my account was $62,000 for the amount of $1,500. Right? I also had a prepaid account. Okay, which was 18,600 for the total of 4,500. And then lastly, I also need to put deposit, because I had to make a rent deposit for the account number 18,700 for the total of 1,500. And then lastly, it's coming out of my bank account, right? Because I wrote a check. As all checks are, they come from directly out of your checking account. 10,100, right? You can take that from the top or the bottom. And now you want to write a check for the total of $7,500. Right? Okay. All right, so now that we completed this section of the journal, now all we have left is our description. Now, before anything happens, we need to get a check number. Where in the world do we get our check number? Yes, we got to go to our check register and cut the check immediately so we know what number to assign. So in this case, my date here is going to be June 5th. And the amount that I'm going to write my check out for is for $7,500. So this is also where you have to format if you prefer. All right. Now, in my checkbook, just like normal, right? Who am I writing this check out to? Landlord Properties. Yes. In this case, you don't need to have description. All you need to know is just who you made the payment for. Landlord Properties. All right, there you go. Landlord Properties. Okay. And then now that I have my check number 1501, I can go ahead and go back to my journal. Okay, so this is a good reference point for you too. So you can keep track of your information. Now, how I want you to place it here is, well, I need to know who you wrote this check out to. So in this case, I'm going to put details such as landlord properties. Okay? All right? And I'm going to also indicate that all right, there's no really necessary like you have to do June's rent because it's pretty straightforward, right? You're renting from landlord properties. So the only real detail here that you really want to put here or add is going to be the check number. So check number 1501 because that's how my checkbook starts. I start off in my 1500s. So my very first check that I write is going to be check number 1501. All right. And now my journal is complete. So now I'm going to go ahead and bring it to my actual ledger. Okay, my general ledger, and I'm going to update all my accounts. So the first account that I have here is going to be rent expense. So again, if by using the chart of accounts, we automatically know that it's going to be under operating expenses. Okay, so here I'm going to go ahead and find my rent expense. Right, here's my rent expense. Okay, so what is it, 6.5? Right, and here you can write as much as you want here. I'm going to go ahead and write June or, for the month of June. Okay. Ooh, I misspelled the, actually, no. I'm going to retype this in. For the month of June. Right? I'm still on general journal page number 1, and I debited my expense by $1,500, making my beginning balance to be $1,500. All right, and I'm going to format that. Now the next thing here is I have a prepaid account, which we establish as an intangible asset. So it's going to be one of the accounts that are going to be at the very bottom. So here I have my deposits. So one more up, here is my prepaid accounts. So what I'm going to indicate here is whatever detail that you want. In this case, I'm going to write that I have advance pay for 3 months. because I already used 1 month, correct? So here I have 3 months advanced payment for rent. It's going to be all the way at the bottom, so it's going to be like the last on assets. Yeah, because they're intangible. Oh, advanced. I think I want to say advanced. Oops. Well, actually, advanced payment rent for 3 months. Okay. General journal number 1. And it is for $4,500. Making my account balance also $4,500. Okay. And then I have right underneath it, the account table underneath it is my deposits. So I'm going to go ahead and indicate that I have rent deposit. Still on page 1, and it's for $1,500, bringing my account balance to be $1,500. Okay. And now the last thing that I have left is going to be my checking. So I'm going to scroll all the way up, okay, and find my checking account in my assets, and I'm going to go ahead and indicate in my third line that I have on June 5th. Now here you can place as much information you want. You can have the person that you wrote the check out, the check number, and etc., etc. Now in this case, a check number should be sufficient, just because I can go pull up my check register and I can automatically find who I wrote the check out to. So I'm just going to indicate here just my check number. I don't need to put who I wrote the check out to or what I wrote the check out for. Okay, so you have many post references. So with the post reference here, even if I wrote check number 1501 and I have my post reference, I know that if I go to my general journal number 1, I'm going to find it automatically. All right? And because I crediting my account, I'm decreasing the amount of money I have. It should be decreased by $7,500, and that's going to drop down if you have your calculations in your table automatically. The minute you press enter, it should automatically recalculate for you. So I just went from $23,000 to now $16,125. Okay. All right. And now we dealt with a vendor. Okay. We dealt with a vendor, which is landlord properties. So this is where I'm going to teach you how to also place the information in your subsidiary ledger. So now go ahead and take out your subsidiary ledger. All right. I'll give you guys a couple seconds for this one. Yes. Yes. All right. Yes, correct. It's going to be vendors because we're dealing with other people. We're not dealing with our customers. We don't have employees yet. So we're going to be dealing with our vendors, right? We're making payments or we owe other people. So in this one, your vendors should be in alphabetical order as well. So wherever landlord properties is, LV, that's okay. That's okay. So here you go. That's why it's better to have your Excel versus having your millions of Word documents open. Yeah. So here on June 5th, landlord properties. So the notes that you're going to have here is, well, what did you do? Okay. And then you can also do rent for 4 months. Okay. Check number, whatever amount that you paid for, or the check number 1501, right? You paid for 4 months of rent. Invoice, all right? In this case, most contracts or most things that you write out, they don't really have a number. You know, some do, like a contract number. But in this case, I don't have one. So you don't have to worry about this unless we are given specific directions, for example, for those specific transactions, if there is a number or not. Okay? So same thing, your post reference is going to be whatever you placed it in the journal. So general journal number 1. In this case, this is rent. They're not going to give you any discounts for anything. All right? And because we made advance payment for 3 months, there's no due date or rent due date, right? It's going to be automatically taken out of our advanced payment because we've already paid in advance. So we have no terms or no discount date or no actual date for the rent to be due because we've already made the payment in advance. So we can skip these 3 columns. So the next one is going to be a prepaid amount. Now, don't confuse this because yes, we made an advance payment, but this is talking about, did you make an advance payment ahead of time before receiving your product? In this case, no, we didn't make a down payment before receiving the product, right? We went to there and now we're paying a whole entire amount, right? So the prepaid amount here, and I'll show you what I mean when we move into another account where we do actually incur prepaid amounts. In this case, no, I did not have anything. But my invoice amount is going to be what my total bill was. In this case, yes, my total bill was for $7,500. Okay? Now, with that being said, okay, so here our invoice amount or my bill amount was for $7,500. Now the next section is, do we have returns and allowances? Not yet. We didn't, this is our first time dealing with this vendor, right? This is our first time having rent. If we have disputes or anything's going on with the rent or the landlord, that's when we'll have a return and allowance. Right now, we just purchased it. We're fine now. Okay? Of course, there's no discounts when it comes to rent. But did we make a payment to the rent guy? Yes, we did. We paid him with a check 1501. All right, and we paid him for the full $7,500. So, with that being said, how accounts payable column is going to work is you're going to have a formula. All right, so the formula is going to be your equal, right? You want to get your formula started. You need to start off with your invoice amount. Okay, so whatever your bill is for, okay? Then you're going to subtract, of course, your prepayments, right? Because usually that should reduce your actual bill. You're also going to subtract out any returns and allowances, subtract any discounts, and then lastly, subtract any payments. Okay? So right now, you owe landlord properties $0. Okay? Okay. Let's just say, for example, okay, if you get 0 here, right? Let's say I didn't pay my landlord, right? If I just had that 0, what's going to happen is when you punch in your formula, what's going to happen is because you entered in your invoice amount as first, right? And you didn't make any advance payments, no returns, no discounts, or no payments. Therefore, in your accounts payable column, you're going to have the amount that you owe to landlord properties, okay? So this is when I made absolutely no payment to landlord properties, so I owe them $7,500. But because I have a check number for 1501, and usually when you have rent, you pay on the spot. You never owe them. Okay, so here I'm going to place back my amount, and every time you place that amount in that specific line, it automatically grabs that part of the formula and it calculates it in there, making it a 0 for accounts payable, meaning I owe landlord properties nothing. My bill has been paid off. Okay, and that's how you utilize the subsidiary ledger. Now, of course, not everything that you enter in will apply. We'll looking at prepaid amounts, and then we'll look at invoices where we receive our discounts and XYZ. So there's a lot of ways that I want you to enter in, so it makes easier sense for you, but also it's a way to keep your transaction organized, okay? And make it clear on what a transaction occurred and what has happened, all right? Now, as you go further down in life, okay, and you're doing this manually, if it makes sense to you to just place it all in one, you may do so. And I'll talk about that when we encounter one of our vendors that have to deal with those kind of circumstances, okay? So with that being said, now that we completed all 3 worksheets, right? We went to our journal, we went to our ledger, and we also updated our subsidiary ledger. So now we are complete with our transaction and can move on to the next one, all right? But now I'm going to pause here because it's already 3 o'clock, and I'm going to call break here, all right? So let me